Kia ora. Titiro whakamuri, kōkiri whakamua. Look back and reflect so you can move forward. QP2, leadership. So when this was one of my QPs that evolved, so it started off as leading and working alongside fellow studiers, STs, in the te reo and tikanga journey. But rather, leading doesn't mean that you're the teacher up the front, telling people how to do things. Leading's also from the back. It's about listening. It's about taking on board others' perspectives and places where they're at for their learning. And so that was something that I was able to do as well in that space, was to take their leads and to work around what was needed, as you'll see in some of the video evidence from our Zui. When I talked about this in my early intervention COPS or codes of practice hui, it was brought to my attention that this QP shouldn't just be about te reo. It should be about leadership. It should be about how my skills of leading in different ways. So another thing that I was asked to do was to run an te reo learning session for our ESWs, our education support workers. And I found that valuable because it was all about another example of starting where the akonga is, starting where the learner is, not assuming that people have basics about anything, but rather going in with those open ears and leading by way of listening first and then doing. Yeah. And so the thing about this QP2 leadership, is that it interweaves all three of my QPs. So leadership is part of interprofessional practice, my QP1, and leadership is also part of QP3, growing whānau centred practice. They, like as I was using the analogy of a whāriki, in my overall reflection and in my growth, yes, it's all interweaved. Leadership definitely is. Other ways that I've led is leading things in the office, like around tikanga. Also, as part of team mahi, presentations about the EI role, our role in transitions, our roles in inclusion in early learning contexts and transitioning to school contexts. Creating presentations with a team and then presenting those to different people. You'll find that in my evidence. So that's how this QP began and evolved, and it fits the context because we have to lead and we have to listen and we have to learn in this role. And it's also from, with and about others. I really enjoyed the leadership when I actually realised some of the things that I'd done along the year, and I hadn't even realised. It wasn't until the validations and the evidence started coming in, and I was putting it together recently, and I was like, wow. I actually thought that I wasn't much of a leader until people validated that. And so it's either in this QP or in the first one about interprofessional practice. So what's the linkings there? Okay, ka hiki tia, the Māori education strategy, leading from the front, the side, and the back, so that our Māori learners are in environments where their understanding, worldviews are uplifted. Yes. What else? Learning support action plan. All of the priorities in there are part of our leadership. He pikorua a biggie, our learning support practice framework. Leadership in like even just understanding it more. And what I loved the most too about this year was actually taking a stand and going out and learning alongside fellow studiers. Like I didn't do that last year. I was a bit whakamā. This year, that was my goal, was to get out there and do that more, become more of a leader and a contributor. And I feel like I've done that in that space. And I really enjoyed that. Early learning action plan, whānau at the centre. When we advocate for whānau going to school, or when we think about inclusion and equity in education spaces, that's a form of leadership that I have aspired to espouse this year and in the future. Tātai ako, wānanga, that's just something that's integral to whānau Māori, is the whakawhanaungatanga, the wānanga, the ako that comes from that. Again, going back to listening before we lead. Manaaki, whanaunga. So there are examples of that in my QP validations and evidence. So I hope you enjoy that. So kia ora, tātou.